also be considering, how are we counting people in this country? How are we giving states authority and power in Congress to influence the laws of the land? And I have coming up here with us our guest. I'm going to read the Fox News headline here. Missouri launches sweeping lawsuit to block Census from counting illegal immigrants. Hijacked representation. Let's speak to our guest right now. Attorney General for the state of Missouri, Catherine Hanaway, joins us once again. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Hanaway. It's so great to speak with you once again. And you've kind of taken Twitter and the internet a little bit by storm by going out here and starting this process. It's good to have you with us.
It's so good to be with you, Annie. And isn't it amazing that something that just seems so common sense has gotten people so worked up? I mean, the lawsuit just simply says we should only count people who are legally in the United States for the purposes of apportioning congressional seats, electoral votes, and federal dollars. Only American citizens and people who are here like on a green card are the only ones who should be counted. It just seems so simple.
So you do have an accommodation in this. It's not just a citizenship status. You're here, you're legally, you're participating in the system, likely paying taxes, working, just living a legal existence here in the United States. Those people would be counted as well.
And that's what the law says. That's what the Constitution, the cases interpreting it, and the law say, is that if you're permanently in the United States, then you should be represented in Congress. Then you should be represented in the presidential election through an electoral vote. And then you should be counted for purposes of federal programs. But illegal people who are here illegally or on a temporary basis, like a student visa or a business visa, shouldn't be counted.
Can you walk us through, we're speaking with the Attorney General for the state of Missouri, Catherine Hanaway. Can you walk us through right now what this current situation is? How are people counted currently?
Well, it maybe won't surprise people who have long memories that this goes all the way back to Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was the first president to say, we should count all these people illegally in the country. And it's worked tremendously to the benefit of states like California, who have any state that's created a sanctuary for illegals to come in, has a huge population, and they count in the census, and those states have gotten more congressional seats. So in the first Trump administration, President Trump said, look, we're not going to count illegals anymore. But then the Attorney General of California sued to get it enjoined. Then Biden got elected and just absolutely reversed that decision, which is part of why we filed a lawsuit. President Trump, I think, would make sure as best he could that we didn't count illegals in the 2030 census, but he's going to be out by then.
Yeah.
And so we need a court order making this permanent.
So what you're saying is this process had been started before, but it was never ruled upon with finality. It wasn't sought through because the president that got in there who didn't agree with it just made it go poof, go away.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
Poof. Just a lot of things with Biden, just poof, gone. So is it, I'm thinking, Attorney General Catherine Hanaway with us right now. I live across the river in the People's Republic of Illinois, and we have been a sanctuary state for quite some time. Chicago certainly very proud of its sanctuary city status. Is it, in your mind, likely that these, there's a very altruistic, warm and fuzzy, like, you can come here and you're safe, we'll protect you. That's very good politics on the surface. But if you dig a little bit, was there a long game being played by the Californias, the Illinois of the world who said, yeah, we're sanctuary states, come here, let's go? Was that intentional?
I think it was. I absolutely think it was. I mean, Los Angeles alone has 2 million illegal immigrants. The state of Missouri has a population just over 5 million. So it's Missouri, if the 2020 census were done without illegals, would have one more congressional seat. If it's done correctly in 2030, we'd gain another congressional seat. California loses, New York loses, Illinois in the 2030 census would lose a seat. I think this has been very intentional, and with each congressional seat comes one electoral vote. Mm-hmm. So not only does it have an impact on the balance of power in Congress, it can have an impact on the outcome of the presidential election.
See, now it almost sounds like you're saying that the willingness to kick open the front door, the back door, and break all the windows to let people flood into this country was politically advantageous for just one party over the other. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but it's what it sounds like.
I think that might be exactly what I'm saying. Thank you for putting it in much more understandable terms.
So, I'm thinking about the process that was, put in place, and you're picking up the ball and you're pushing it down the field here. Is this going to be a rapid pace? Is this something we're going to see get to the Supreme Court and have to be ruled on there? How do you envision this process likely unfolding? I'm not a legal mind. I always refer to the appeal in the court system as the foul ball of baseball. Like, you think this pitch, it's it. It's full count. It's bottom of the ninth. They're 2 outs. This is it. And then it's a foul ball, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do this all over again. So how do you envision this process moving forward? What kind of timeline are we looking at?
So I think it'll be a couple of years, and I won't get too far into the weeds. It's a different process than normal litigation. 3 judges will actually consider this at the outset, and then our very first appeal, instead of being to a court of appeals, will be to the U.S. Supreme Court. But even though it'll be a quicker than normal process, I think we're still talking about 18 months to 2 years before the court would hear this. And I'm certain. I mean, if we lose, we're going to appeal. If the people who've been letting all these illegal immigrants in lose, they're going to appeal. So yeah. If the court takes the case, that's where it'll get decided finally.
We're speaking with the Attorney General of the state of Missouri, Catherine Hanaway. Do you anticipate, has it happened already, other attorneys general coming together to support these efforts from other states?
I do anticipate it happening. This is the first of its kind in the country lawsuit. I would anticipate that we will see most of the Republican AGs join. Now, some of them are in a little bigger states who may have bigger illegal populations, so they'll have to do the calculation on whether they're losing a congressional seat. This, to me, and the reason I wanted to file it, is that I think Missourians have been disproportionately hurt by this. Even though it's a big federal issue, for me, this is the core of my job, to stand up for Missourians getting their fair share.
Yes.
And that's what this suit's about.
Amen. I always appreciate watching Missouri do their thing and knowing that it's possible as an Illinois resident myself. We have not a single Republican in representation anywhere. And I would assume that in the state of Illinois, the disadvantage that Missouri has been subjected to because of the inflation of populations from these blue states, especially one neighboring right now, that, of course, Illinois would see some of their influence in the federal government get knocked down, their ability to influence the presidential election. But I think that also would potentially open up Republicans for an opportunity to compete in those blue states a little bit more as well, at least fairly, I would say. I wanted to ask you a question about the fraud that's taking place across the country that we're finding out a little bit here, a little bit there, but definitely in Minnesota. I can't imagine a scenario where Governor Tim Walz, Mayor Jacob Frey, those are the 2 prominent political figures we see right there in the news currently, but also the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, in Minnesota. One of 2 things is happening there. Either they knew all about the fraud and they've turned their eye willfully away from it, or they're so bad at their job that they had no idea about this fraud. I'm curious of your assessment on what is taking place right now in Minnesota.
It feels like a little bit of both to me, Annie, truly. They had to have some hint. It's just too widespread. Now, here in Missouri, we're asking ourselves the hard question. I've been in touch with the governor and his team to say, hey, let's be proactive. Let's look around. There's got to be at least some, because bad people live everywhere. We don't have this huge Somali population. We do have an active Medicaid fraud unit that's constantly bringing cases. But we're talking not only with the governor's office, but with the U.S. attorney's offices in St. Louis and Kansas City. And, we're proactively saying, let's take a hard look at ourselves and make sure we don't look anything like Minnesota. And yeah. I know we don't, but there's some. Like, this is taxpayer money. We ought to spend it on, if it's for daycare, let's spend it on daycare, not lying in somebody's pockets.
Yes, amen to that. I mean, Who should be the buck stopper in a situation like this in Minneapolis? Obviously, crimes would have to be committed for you to be able to get into the process and participate in the prosecution of weeding that out. But it seems to me like nobody in Minnesota specifically is taking responsibility. There's the talk that California is going to be the next big story in the fraud department. Like, who is the buck stopper here to make sure that they have an environment that doesn't welcome this type of fraud?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be the Department of Justice under President Trump. It's going to have to prosecute the criminals up there. I don't see any of those Minnesota officials doing the right thing.
Yeah. You think it's worse than has been reported? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we probably just know the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it seems like it was just like a family business. Like, this is what we do. You just tap into the federal government and nobody's going to ask any questions, and it's somebody else's money anyway, so let's just go.
Yeah. We're speaking with the Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway. Another question I'd like to ask you, kind of in hand a bit with the news over the weekend, where we have found out that you have launched a sweeping lawsuit to block Census from counting illegal immigrants. I think part of this also goes to it's the same department area of the case in front of the Supreme Court right now. It's the birthright citizenship case. But then also we're talking about the SAVE Act in Congress and whether or not voter ID should have to be part of your voting process. I was just having a discussion with some family over the weekend about whether or not it would be constitutional to require some sort of identification to vote. And, I'm just trying to think of other instances where we're required to produce identification to verify who we are. It's not like the law is trying to be changed here. You're not allowed to vote unless you're a citizen, correct? That's already the law of the land.
Yes, that is the law of the land, and you have to produce identification to buy beer, buy a firearm, buy tobacco products. You certainly should be required to produce ID to exercise the privilege of deciding how we are governed as a nation, and I'm optimistic that that's going to become the law of the land. Yeah. We've been trying hard here in Missouri for a long time to make it the law, and our court keeps throwing it out. But we're up in front of the court again on this very issue. So the Missouri Supreme Court.
I just think about all of the different angles to try to restore some reliability, some integrity to our election system. Your lawsuit being a key part of that. Last question before we let you go. Speaking with Catherine Hanaway, the Missouri Attorney General here. If you were successful in this, and again, you were talking about this is a long game situation. It's not going to be, ruled on before the midterms, and we're not going to get a new census done before the midterms, or likely it's before the next presidential election. How transformative do you anticipate, should you win in this lawsuit, to only count citizens, legal residents of this country in the census? How consequential do you anticipate it might be?
Oh, I think it certainly could change the balance of power in Congress and change that balance of power for the next several decades. Less impactful on the presidential election, but could turn the tide in a very close race for sure. So it's really important. It's really, really important. And Annie, I just want you to say thank you for covering it. And I've been meaning to call you or text you to say how wonderful I thought your interview with Jim Talent was after Venezuela was invaded. It gave such great perspective on how important that was for our national foreign policy.
Well, thank you. All credit to Jim Talent, because I just asked the dumb questions and he's got all the good answers. Much like having a conversation with you. It's good to have access to really smart people doing pretty cool things. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks for having me on again.
All right. Absolutely. Keep fighting the fight. We'll have you back soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
Attorney General Catherine Hanaway of the state of Missouri. She put out that this lawsuit was being filed, and Elon Musk liked the tweet or post or whatever you call whatever it is now on X,